All right, welcome back to the Pretty Awkward Entrepreneur podcast. Today I have special guest, Mr. Simon Hall, who is on the other side of the world. So welcome. Thank you for hopping on so late for your time. It's early over here, but I'm really excited to have you on the podcast today.
Hey, look, I'm honored that you've invited me on, but most of the point, I love the name of this podcast. It's
Right?
such a brilliant name. Yeah, I
I
absolutely
remember
love
when I
that.
was like deciding what to call it, I was like, I probably shouldn't just call it the Pretty Awkward Entrepreneur because like that's not searchable and all this stuff. And I'm like, no, we're going with it. Let's just do it. This is us.
I I think it sums up the entrepreneurial journey really well because it really like a
Right.
startup business. It is fucking awkward,
Yeah,
and you have to put
exactly.
yourself into awkward. I think it's brilliant. I think it really suits.
I
I like
love it.
that.
I'm so with you. Like the biggest theme of the brand is really to embrace like your weird quirks and who you are to build your business and make that actually like leverage that. But it's also just because entrepreneurship, like you said, is just really awkward in the beginning, especially
Yeah.
and as you grow, which I'm sure we'll talk about more in your story. But thank you so much for being here. Just share with the audience a little bit about your background, your story. I know it's very long and involved and in depth, which I think is super cool. So I guess the Reader's Digest version, but share as much as you think
We'll
would
go
be valuable.
short.
Yeah.
We'll go short. So effectively, I started off very young. I jumped down the stairs as a child, and my mum and dad realized I had a bit of a fearless side, so they put me into gymnastics at a very young age. Basically, long story short, I ended up nearly going to the Olympics
Oh,
as a
wow.
gymnast. So if you can think, yeah, so from the age of like 3 upwards, my entire life was structured, routine, do you know what I mean, militant, but at the same time, there was a lot of cons to it. So if you can
Yeah.
imagine, you're the worst person in the world if you bend a toe in that
Mm.
sport. So mentally, it didn't do too good on the back end of it. But literally from that, I came out of that career about 14 or so, and I really struggled with like, who am I? What do I do? My whole identity was in sport as an athlete. Really struggled with myself from that point. Like, what do I want to go and do now?
Mm.
Trying to rebuild social circles. Basically, something happened in the family. Again, this is a short version of the story. We actually had a death in the family, which led to me then going and like working in the health industry. So the family member who actually passed, one of the coaches who I used to work with, probably not the best thing that you'd say to someone, especially as young as I was at the time, but it was like, if your granddad would have looked after himself and looked after his health, this wouldn't have been the end of the journey for him.
Mm.
You probably don't say that to someone when the grandfathers died, and I was very close to my grandparents, but that's what was said, but it lit a fire in me. So I was like, okay,
There you go.
suddenly realized that there's a lot of other people in the world who aren't healthy, XYZ, ended up like getting me into the fitness industry. From then we blew up in the local area. So we had waiting lists for years, like a 2-year waiting list. At that point, yep, we were one of the highest charging one-on-one service-based personal training companies or people, or I was at the time. And then what that led to is I suddenly realized and I embraced. I was like, look, I'm burning myself to the floor here selling time for money. And I like, for me, and I think this is where a lot of entrepreneurs and people in the service-based industry really get the drive and their inspiration from, is if you want to help, like if you want to change the world and help a lot of people, you've really got to be smart on your time. And for me, that thing that I wanted to do, which was help everyone in the world, was also making me sacrifice time. So I was like saying yes to people when I shouldn't say yes. I was going into work at 4, 5 a.m. and leaving at 10, destroyed, relationships were falling to bits. I wasn't the picture of health. I was sacrificing my own boundaries, but I was helping people.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then and then one point came, I was 18, 19. I started to realize very quickly that the online world was a thing. Right now, we talk and we consult for businesses about funnels and all this sort of stuff. We built a huge business off an advert and a PDF online. And this is when Facebook just started. So this was probably on the back end of the last recession. We ended up building a rather large global coaching business, which was doing the whole health and fitness thing. Now, I was very young. It grew too quick. It grew very quick. I learned a lot of lessons in that business. My first business blew up. and it also fell down.
Yeah.
And also I have a constant reminder in my Instagram handles, as it's the last two letters of my Instagram tag is the initials of that business. So it always says,
I didn't know that. That's so cool.
yeah, that's what the BC stands. I just look at it now and go, yeah, business consultant, but it's not.
That's crazy.
But yeah, so I always change it. But effectively, that's what happened. So that first business was that. But then at the same time, that business falling to the floor at such a young age. It really forced me to do a lot of things, such as going in search of like who I actually was, because I still think I was still trying to come to terms with leaving the athletic career. I was just clutching at straws. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. Didn't really know where I wanted to go, but I was just doing things. And my issue was, even if they weren't the things that I wanted to do, I did them really well. And then basically what that has now led to is we're now on the verge of launching quite a few businesses and brands I actually work alongside. We've got different investments. So pretty much now 10 years, 11, 12 years on from that, we're in a position now where we're working with a hell of a lot of big companies, brands. We're now on the verge of launching our own. I think the last time we spoke, I think it was you and we were talking about it. And I was like, we were talking about how people struggle to launch one business. We're launching one business with 6 substrate businesses underneath.
Oh, wow.
So
yeah,
yeah, pretty much. So literally just as we were about to do it, and I think this could tie in really, really well, I've only just connected the dots here, is we were actually doing the launch strategy before the corona and what's currently happening now. And we've really had to change the strategies and look for the different opportunities and all that sort of stuff, really, since everything's happened in the world. And we're now in this period of complete chaos and unknown.
Oh my gosh.
But that's pretty much it. That's the shortest version of the story I've ever given there.
That's like, I want to hear the long story, maybe just like personally one day, because just the fact that I didn't know you were a gymnast and almost went to the Olympics, that's really incredible. Like, what?
No one knows that.
That's nuts. And not like, it's not surprising though that what happened after that, because if you, to be that good of an athlete, you have to be so committed, like the training, the regimen, like, so it was just in you, obviously, to go from that to then building this incredible business that you were, how old were you when you built your first one? You said you were not even 18 yet?
I was doing businesses from around 17, 18. I was very young. I was very early to the mark. I had fire. Does that make sense? I was hungry. Like, I'd gone from having something massive to work towards and I couldn't find what I wanted to do with it. I just couldn't find what I wanted to do, and it just kind of led. So it took off obviously into the fitness industry. I didn't like, I loved that industry, but I grew to hate it for years. Like, does that make sense? And then
actually, I'd love to hone in on that, because it's so interesting you said that. I have so many clients. I like joke around that I'm the coach people come to when they want to switch industries for some reason. Like, I'd say more than half my mastermind clients have switched what they're doing halfway through the mastermind, but in a great way. Like, they're finally coming into alignment. They're like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so how did you know, like, sure, you might be passionate about fitness, but you knew it wasn't what you were meant to do long term. Like, how do you know when it's time to switch, or when it's time to pivot, or is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Like, is there anything that you can glean from that experience?
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, when I look at the majority of like big personal brands that we've worked with, if a lot of the time when it comes down to this sort of work, is the end result can always look the same, but the modality of getting there can always be a variable that changes. And I think a lot of people are very closed in that mindset, and they think it's just got to be that one clear route. Does that make sense? And it can go in a lot of different routes. A lot of the time, people know. Like, I knew for 2 years, but it took me 2 years to make the decision and act. And it took me a lot of people to get their permission slips. Didn't take one. Took a hell of a lot of people. And also, because I was quite young and I was quite naive, and it was the first thing, it was my baby, I didn't want to let go. I had a lot of pride wrapped up in it. There was a lot of ego. Do you know what I mean? And I think when you've built something on media as well, and it's a front facing your face of the brand, that's another thing that you've got to overcome. So I think that's kind of the hard thing, is coming to terms of why you want to move away from it, and then making the other thing inspire you a little bit more than where you are.
I love that you put it that way. That's exactly how I felt when I switched from network marketing into my own business. Exactly, very similar. I felt like, wait, I built this big business up. This is what I'm known for, and I'm just going to start over from scratch. Like I'm going to have to start from the bottom, and it was a huge hit to my ego. But realizing that I'd rather take that hit, and I'd rather, a lot of people say, well, I went to college for 4 years, or I spent all this time building this business. That's wasted time. I have to just keep doing it because I spent all this time beforehand. And it's like, you have the rest of your life though. So is that really the wasted time? You learned something, you got good at something, and now you could take what you learned and move on to the next thing that you're really excited about. So I love that.
I love that. I love this because I was literally the interview before this, we were speaking about this. And I was just saying, like, a lot of people get locked up. Like, you've got these like 24, 5-year-old entrepreneurs who just don't want to move. And they're like, and I'm just like, you've got time. You could transition and pivot 13 times.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? You'd still be 30.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then if you actually look, this is the real, I can swear, right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. The real fucked up thing is when you actually look, and this is where I think the mindset needs to shift in business, and especially the younger entrepreneurial audience, is if you actually look at the average age, most people make 1 million. The actual average age that 96% upwards earn their first million is 43.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but you only see the anomalies or the do you know what I mean? Like your Zuckerbergs or XYZ that make it at a very young age. Mm-hmm. So we get kind of wrapped up. We have these misguided goalposts. And I think when you really look at things and you actually like, you're still growing at that age. So why not try things, find out more of who you are, find out with 100% certainty the thing that you want to put your effort, your time, your life into. Yeah. And really go at things. Now, we mentioned before about like, you said something before, and I think this kind of segues in here about the whole gymnastic career.
Yeah.
So when I had a goal, which was my purpose, discipline was not hard. Focus was not hard. Consistency, easy. But as soon as I lost that and put it in some, I really struggled. I couldn't get disciplined. I couldn't get focused. I was really indecisive. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then, but then as soon as I kind of realigned and I got that purpose again, a few years down the line, suddenly then decisions become easier. Your confidence in what you're doing gets a lot clearer.
Yeah.
That's kind of the missing tool for a lot of people, is like, you really know why you are doing something, work out the why behind it, make sure it's a really grounded purpose. And I think that tends to carve the road for a lot of people.
Yeah. That's put such a great way. I have a couple girls specifically who I worked with this past month who switched industries pretty like, I'm trying to think of the word. They didn't ease into it, put it that way. They were like, hey, this is my new thing.
Oh, it's hard.
That's personally I did too. So they followed in my footsteps. I was like, by the way, not fitness coaching anymore. We're doing business coaching. And both of them had their biggest months the next month. And it wasn't because they could make more money doing the other thing. It's because the content started flooding out of them. They had been like trying to pull teeth, trying to get clients in their other business. They felt so stifled when it came to creativity. They're like, I can't think of anything to put out there. The second they tapped into, oh my gosh, this is really what I've been wanting to do for a long time, the ideas came flooding. They literally were up at night. They couldn't stop thinking of ideas. It almost affected their sleep. Like, they were so excited. And like on the end of that was people felt that energy and were ready to work with them pretty immediately, like within a couple weeks of them talking about it. So it just shows you when you're so in alignment. And like you said, it's kind of just like a crapshoot in the beginning and trying things out and knowing like you can always start over. That's the beauty of entrepreneurship. You like always can start over. So it's just so cool to see that happen. Yeah,
exactly. I think you're 100% right in what you're saying as well. I think as soon as things line up, like that's the biggest thing. A lot of people are like, every day you're a different person. Like, it's a death and rebirth. And I think we always sometimes we try and hold on to who we were and we don't embrace who we can be. And I think usually when a lot of people do that, like that's a big transition I've seen a lot of people do. And the content's completely out of whack. You can tell they're not doing it. And you got to think, if that's happening, what's happening with the clientele? What's happening with the product? What's happening with the team? That will also be suffering. And then as soon as you kind of flip to who you actually are, it all falls back into line. Yeah. And that's branding. If you think about what makes brands, it's transparency, it's clarity, and it's alignment. Everything lines up. It's clear.
Yeah.
And I think it all just falls into play.
And you also like, you don't do it for the money then, when you're in a business that you're just, you're just doing it because that's what you've known, it just becomes about the paycheck. And when you're doing it because you're so passionate about it, sure, you want to make money. Obviously, if you're an entrepreneur and doing a business, you got to support yourself. And that's a huge part of it. But you end up making so much more. This is what I've seen for myself and my clients, so much more than you ever thought possible, because you're not focused on the number. You're focused on just really spreading this message. And that's when it comes. So it's just like this beautiful, beautiful thing.
I think as well, when it's kind of like you're not manipulative in your marketing strategies as well, or your business ethics. Mm-hmm. You're led more from a place of inspiration and actual service. Yeah. And I think it's like right now, the world is done with manipulation. You've seen a lot of people that were just, I'm about the money and not really helping people. They're struggling now. They really are struggling. They're getting exposed. People can see through it now. Yeah. People can literally see it. It doesn't work anymore. So like there is a real calling now for authenticity. Yeah. And people are looking for those leaders, like really are right now.
Yeah, which is so refreshing. It's like, you just gotta really truly speak your truth, be yourself. And I like that you said it's going to expose some others who aren't in that avenue. So if like those listening, what your mission is, you're passionate about. If you really just hone in on that, like you can't go wrong. It's going to take some time, but I think people also, kind of like you were saying, especially younger entrepreneurs, we've got time. Like we have time. Yep. So not trying to rush it or try to hit a certain monetary goal by a certain age, like really focus on, like you said, the inspiration and the service, then the money will come. It really will. Yeah.
100%. The other thing is as well, like if you're selling a product that's like just, it's a money leeching product and you're not really caring about the other person, mm-hmm. and it's very clear, or it's just a shit product, you got to remember you can't sell shit twice. So
I like that.
Quite literally, yeah, you can't though, can you? Like if someone's had a disservice, they'll tell their friends. It won't work. Yeah. So it's very limited in its reach.
Yeah, 100%. Oh gosh, it's so true. I always tell people like the best way to get more clients is to just serve your current clients really great. That's going to get you more clients than anything, any marketing tactic out there. So yeah, 100%. I want to like touch on something you said. We were talking about it before we started recording, but you were saying like you're about to launch a business, or I think you said six
substrates.
Yeah, of the business during this kind of crazy time, and how you've had to pivot and change, and how you started that coaching business during a recession last time. So what has that been like, and anything that you've learned that you think our audience could kind of benefit from during this time?
Yes. Right now, if you're like, it depends on who you're serving is point number one. But right now, like the world is looking for heroes. Like it really is. And the issue is in business, some of us become so focused on the financials, we forget about the service. And like right now, if you were to literally focus on helping people or getting data, or what do farmers do? A farmer in the time of the winter knows he's going to get no crops to harvest and make money off, but he gets the field ready for when the good period comes, so then he can go to market. Mm-hmm. It's the same time right now. Like people, yes, might be in scarce mindsets. It might be harder to make sales, but people are still they're consuming and they're looking for help. So now is a period where you can literally help people. You could give till it hurts, because people really are just looking for leaders and heroes through this really shitty time. Yeah. And you could become their hero. So then when things do become a little bit better in that person's life, then you're going to be the first person on their radar, because mm-hmm. people remember who helped them through the shit period. Prime example is we just launched. So we were running global events. That was one of the things that we had doing. Mm-hmm. Obviously the first thing I go, yep, we'll get that one off the floor. We've got the audiences there. It's all ready. This happens, and clearly events aren't going to be a thing, but we turned it into an online event. Mm. So we had to do this within 4 days. We flipped the model. We got it up. We got 1,500 people engaged, 1,500 people through on and running through the course. Wow. And now that's obviously spreading out and all that sort of stuff, but it was free. We gave, I think it was just under £250,000 worth of speakers, courses, events within that full 10 days. Wow. But everyone gave till it hurt. All the speakers came in, did it for free. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's incredible.
But on the back end of that, their audiences have grown. They've now got the data lists. They've now got the trust. The loyalties are there.
Yeah.
So it's there for when the other time comes. So that's point number one, I'd say. The other thing I'd say right now is businesses have lent away. Like right now, it's even showing in adverts. There's so many businesses which have lent away. They've pulled the marketing costs. So right now, if you're leaning into business and just going from a place of service or whatever, ad costs at current are the cheapest they've been for ages because all the major businesses have pulled the money out.
Yeah.
Because of the way that the world's going, economics. Yeah. So lean in. Like right now, there's opportunities appearing left, right, and center, which aren't being seen. But what I always say this to our guys and who we help is, it's the duty of an entrepreneur to sometimes come off the playing field, have a look because the environment's changed, have a look, see what the new field is, see where the new opportunities have come, and then start to redirect the sales there. And when you look and you do research on major brands and people that have made it, all the huge brands, corporations, and organizations came through and on the back end of recessions.
Why do you think that is? Like, what do you think is the key point to that?
I think it's down to a few things, really. I think I think the key word for this topic will be exposing this whole conversation. So right now, strong brands or brands that didn't have the money have backed off. They've backed away. The service has got shit. Like, I've got a really amazing car back in England. I've not had a reply to an email for 4 weeks. For 4 weeks. So like all of these big brands and stuff like that, where you think they've got it all together, suddenly everything's been moved back. They're exposing weaknesses in the businesses, but the ones that have lent in, they're trying to get through, they're making things work, they're communicating really well with the teams and the customers. They're the ones where it's showing that the systems are in check. Their team culture is in check. They're good with their money because they're handling the way through it. Maybe they're giving till it hurts to keep their customer retention. So it really exposes, I think, right now, either the leader's true values or the leader's fears, or the brand's drive, the brand's systems, or therefore lack of.
Yeah.
So I just think this is a huge period of exposure, both for people, if we look at the human psychology, and also business. I think it's a really incredible time that we're going through right now.
Yeah. 100%. No, all that makes a lot of sense. And it's interesting. I was doing this, I do these like little 21-day challenges, and they basically send you like a 2-minute personal development video every morning. And it's just a nice little like quick burst of inspiration if you can't do anything else that day. And one of them was asked 3 questions. And one of the questions was like, what would you do if money and time was no limit? Like, what excites you the most? And how would you be serving your people? And I think that's like a really great question to ask ourselves right now, because like you said, I love that you phrased give till it hurts. I really, really love that.
Give till it hurts.
We'll definitely make that one of the quotes that we share for this podcast because it's great. And it's kind of that thought, like if you could give till it hurts, what would that look like? What would that include? And that's where you start to get really creative and you start to think of different program ideas, product ideas, even if it starts as like a free training or a free series. I also love that you said you look for the opportunities versus like what's going wrong and what was kind of squashed because of Corona, like your live events. How can I see the opportunity? Cool, let's bring it online. You know what I mean? So any like tips for people who are struggling a little bit to kind of have that mindset flip and really see some of this, for lack of a better word, shitstorm as an opportunity? Like people, especially
embrace it. Like right now, don't lean away from where the business is struggling, lean in. Like if you're a business owner right now, okay, right. We suddenly now know that if a flood happens, our business can't run. So now I need to embrace the online world. Is your business one of these businesses where the shop door only opens once a month? Why is there not an evergreen shop door? So like right now, I always say like this period it's exposing where the business's weaknesses are. And instead of leaning away and going, oh, this is a time and like, I can't do this. It's like, no, let's look at the opportunity, right? Why are we in this position?
Yeah.
Because all the real answers, which can probably take the business to the next level, are being exposed in front of you right now. And a lot of people, a lot of big brands have just backed away.
Yeah.
Instead of leaning in.
And it gives the people who maybe are, like you said, smaller brands, but are being exposed for who they really are in a great way. Like they're awesome. They're leaning in and they're going to just rise to the top, which is incredible. It just also goes to show you at the end of the day, like the good person wins, you know what I mean? Hopefully in this space. And it will get back, you know, people, like you said, if you don't deliver on something if you don't deliver on what you promise and things like that, that will get back to your audience. And so really being a woman of your
People
word,
see.
people do see. Oh
People
my
see.
gosh. It's kind
Like
of
the
baffles me
smallest thing as
sometimes.
well.
Like when I hear stories and I'm like, how do they think they're gonna get away with that? Like what? that's gonna be exposed. So I love that word, exposure. I think that's great. So for these,
Yeah.
like, I'm just curious, I don't know if you can answer this question legally, but
Yeah, whatever you do.
for your 6 subsets, were any of them, besides the live events, were any of them really affected by what's going on, and any other tweaks you guys had to make before you do go into this launch?
Global events, global retreats and summits is 2 things. That's pretty much it, really. The other thing, obviously, my speaking calendar just got crushed.
Yeah.
So obviously anything that involved travel or gatherings, which was me as a personal entity, and those 2 portions of the business were affected, which of course were the 2 that we tried to launch first going into this.
Yeah, right. And you're like, never mind.
I just laughed. Do you know at this point, like,
got it.
I'm 12 years in now. I'm 12, 13 years in. I just laughed. Like I can remember if this was my first, I would have cried. I would have been amazed. I just laughed. I was like, oh, well, what
you're
next?
like, what am I going to do? 100%.
Just laugh.
I'm so with you. It's same thing. 100%. What do you think's been the biggest difference from when you first launched your coaching business from the last recession to now? Like anything you see that's similar that you've learned from that you can apply now? So what's going on?
Yeah. Look, this will be big for your guys. Businesses can only grow to the level that the entrepreneurs are willing to grow to. The business's sticking point or leverage point will always be on that person's shoulders. Businesses do not fail. The person fails the business. Okay? So all of that was me. It was all me. I had to change and evolve to carry this, to make this, to get the right teams in, for it to work, really. And that's the biggest change is me. I had to mature. I had to grow. I had to get stronger. I had to, do you know what I mean? I had to really work on the foundations of that individual. The actual story was after that business, I committed, I just went and traveled the world. I went in, followed my curiosity and, do you know what I mean, for a period of time, and found what I wanted to do in doing that.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Yeah. And it's so interesting
because
I love that. I've seen people who have quote unquote taken breaks, I've put in quotations, traveled, you know, something like that, where it's really not a break. It's a necessary part of the process, like having to find yourself and spend time alone. I actually think one thing that I've personally benefited from a lot in this quarantine, and a lot of people I've talked to, has been slowing down a little bit and having a lot of time to think and do inner work that we've been avoiding. That's something I've definitely been avoiding, that I'm like, whoa, I needed this. I didn't realize I did until now. And sometimes slowing down to speed up, like you said, going to travel just for the sake of doing it, an experience, not because this experience is going to get me that next idea or get me that next business plan. It was just like, let's just experience life and do something that will bring me joy. And then something came out of it, which was a whole new business, which is incredible. So, but the intent.
That's where it comes though. That's where it comes. Like if, like, look, like energy follows whatever you're excited about. Does that make sense? Or wherever your attention is. And if you're doing the things that you love and you enjoy, like naturally, like, and authentically, I totally over-indexed on that word today. Like everything else will follow.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? And then you suddenly work out what, like, okay, like maybe the next version of my life is this. Like all I did was I traveled the world. Like the previous time before this, I was like, I love media. I absolutely love media. I'm still doing speaking gigs. So let's focus on speaking. How can we do this? Podcast, YouTube. So we were just traveling, doing it in like the jungle and all this sort of stuff. And it blew up. Like I was just doing the things that I love. There was no financial gain in it. And I was just doing it. And now it's at a point where I'm like, oh shit, there's actually, if I wanted to, there could be a very big financial gain in this.
Yeah.
So I really think that, like, maybe if you just follow joy, then everything else will follow that.
I want to like shout that from the rooftops. That was something, even back when I did network marketing, I think I kind of got pretty successful at it initially because I was already doing it without getting paid. I didn't know you could even get paid to do what I was doing. I was just loved it. I was like, this changed my life. I'm getting everyone to do it. And then a year later, I found out I could have been making money for a year. I didn't know. And so it was so natural for me to make it a business. I already was. I just wasn't getting paid for it. So it's something I always talk about with my clients. I'm like, would you be doing what you're doing now if you weren't getting paid? Like, do you love it that much? Do you feel like this is why you were put on this earth? Because it's, if you can say, no, I definitely wouldn't, then I personally would rethink it a little bit. You know, are you doing it from a place of, I can't not do this, I can't not share this? That's when it explodes. That's when the money comes, again, more than you ever thought. So I love that you said that. You follow the joy and everything else comes. It's so true.
I think when you look at a lot of people who have done that as well, like that's like people who just are writers who've just gone in on the blogs and the blogs have blown up. Then it's turned into books. Do you know what I mean? Like if you really follow like the majority of things, then that's where I see a lot of things have been grown from.
Yeah, 100%. I was talking to, I did a live with my friend Matt yesterday, and we were talking about the definition of success and how we can get so caught up in our little bubbles sometimes in the online world and compare yourself to someone else in your industry and whatnot. And at the end of the day, what does success feel like to you? What does it look like to you? And usually it actually doesn't have anything to do with a monetary goal at all. It's how you're living your life. It's who you're spending your time with, the clients you're working with, all of that. And when you base your barometer, is that the right word? Or however, I'm trying to think of the word, but like, okay, did I get to do these things that I love today? So personally for me, it's reading, it's going for a walk. I'm living right near a beach right now. So it's going to the beach, even if it's cold, and just looking at it. It's singing, like performing is a huge thing. So if I get to do those things every single day, it was a success. It doesn't mean I signed a client or I made a big deal. Cool, that's great, but that doesn't equal success to me. So also like looking for things outside of your business that can still bring you joy, that, believe it or not, will actually become part of your business if you let it. So that's something we talked about yesterday that really, really felt good.
Yeah, perfect.
You know,
I agree.
yeah, crazy. So this is like nothing to do with this, but I'm just curious. What's your favorite place you've ever traveled to?
Oh, I'm the worst person at these questions. What for what? Like,
Ooh, I love that. That's a good word.
Yeah, for what? Like, it's the same thing. Like, what's your favorite drink? Okay, give me the setting.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. Okay, we'll say for food, because I'm a big foodie.
Food. Oh, Italy was good. Dubai was good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd probably say Italy. I think Italy would probably be my favorite.
I love Italy. Yeah, that's probably my favorite. I haven't been all over like you have, but Italy's been my favorite so far. For views, what's been like the most incredible scenery or like breathtaking view you've seen? That's my second most important.
So I've got a couple. Like, there's a few. All of mine have been like deep in nature. So I did the Inca Trails. That view will stick with me for life. We ran up Kilimanjaro to raise money for charity. Like literally ran up it, nearly killed me. There was a point. I always speak about this in my my gigs. There's a point where I focused so much on getting to the top, I never stopped and looked around and looked at how far we'd gone. And for views, the best view I have ever seen in my life was out nearly dying, falling to the floor through exhaustion, literally rolling over, seeing a load of lights going down the hill, and then 2 shooting stars shot past. I mean, you could just see we were above the clouds, and that's the best view I've ever seen in my life. Was from pretty much the top of that.
That's incredible. That's such a good quote for life too. It's like we're so focused on the end goal, we don't look and see like, whoa, look what I've already done, you know?
The amount of energy that gave me that moment is, I honestly, like I thought we were going to have to stop and turn around. Like I was quite a big, I was 100, I was doing still into the athletic stuff there. So it was about 115 kilograms. The lad who I was with was about 120. And the bigger you are at altitude, like it gets you. Like, so we were really, really struggling, especially with the speed that we were trying to ascend at. And I can't explain, like we were going out, like we were shouting at each other, like panting, shouting, throwing up, like trying to push each other up the hill. And honestly, like within a moment of just turning around and seeing how far we'd actually come and just like stopping for just 10 seconds, it was instant recharge. And I think that is an amazing lesson within business. A lot of the time you focus on hitting a financial goal that you don't stop and just go, oh, shit.
Exactly. I had one of those moments a week ago, actually. And I was like, you know, again, this is why this theme has come up, is like getting in your head and constantly trying to one up yourself and all of that for these almost vanity metrics, to be really honest. And I just stopped and I looked and I was like, if I was where I was at last year, at the, like where I am now a year ago, I would have been like, what? No, that's not going to happen, you know? And so it brought me right back into, oh my gosh, look what we've done, you know? And it's really important to like stop and celebrate. It's a huge thing that my coach actually really instilled in me, and I do with my clients, is like, cool, you had an incredible launch, you had a great month, or you had a, you know, something huge happen. How are we going to celebrate instead of just moving on to the next thing? Like, let's acknowledge what you just did and celebrate how far you've come. I think it's so important to do that.
It's massive. It really is massive. I think I always look as well, like a lot of the time with this sort of stuff is the chase mentality. What's the real root of it? You know what I mean? Because I always think entrepreneurs really suffer from not enoughness. Like, I'm not doing enough. This isn't good enough. Like, I've achieved this. There's got to be more. And it's very unfulfilling when you do that. And I think to actually stop and acknowledge and go, do you know, we've done enough.
Yeah.
I did well.
Yeah.
I think it's a very big turning point for people.
And when you actually say that, moving forward, you come from such a like full place that everything is based on service. And then it just goes to new heights you never even thought possible. You almost restrict yourself if you're just focusing on that end goal for the sake of it, you know?
I think you allow yourself a new set point. So I think, for example, like you grow, you achieve by stopping. So a business will grow, optimization and growth. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's the same. Like you achieve the goal, let yourself catch up, new ceiling. Go again, let yourself catch up, new ceiling. And I think what happens is when you're constantly doing this, like when something slips, I think that's when you run the risk of falling back down to the bottom very quick.
Yeah. I love that analogy. That's so, as you were explaining it, going to the top, I was like, wait, this is so good for business. This is great. Yeah. Perfect. I love it. Yeah. Well, that's also though, I'm sure why these experiences you've had traveling the world, doing things like that, you know, like almost seemingly impossible things, which is, you know, for some people it is just because they set that limit on themselves. Look how much that has created for your life and your business. Like all of it is such a good analogy for our life, our business relationships, you know, it's just really, that's why I think having more life experiences, like get outside, get out of your computer, get out of your just phone and go like just experience something. It will help you with your business. I promise you, every time I travel, which we can't right now, unfortunately, but even if I go for a walk and I just get out of my phone and I get out of the scrolling, all of a sudden something magical happens and I'm inspired again and I'm creative again. It's when I'm like trying to force it to happen that it doesn't happen.
I was speaking at an event and I always drop this when I'm doing these, like how many people have created their own business thing. I'm like, why did you create your own business? I always think there's a pandemic of people who go into this, I'm going to build my business, but they only live half of the dream. I always say at the beginning, it's like, how many have you done this? How many have you built that dream? But how many have done the thing in which you wanted to create the business for? Was it freedom? How many of you are traveling the world? Like a lot of people only follow the dream halfway through and they'll stick. They'll just stay in the coffee shop on the laptop instead of traveling the world, which is what they did it. And it's just like, okay.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And it's, oh my gosh, it's such a good point. I know so many people who say they do it for their family or they do it for this or that, but they're literally not seeing their family because they're working 24/7. You know, I experienced that in network marketing. It was to the point where I was working 12, 13, 14-hour days, never saw my family, and like it just became not fun to live with, honestly. And it's interesting, after I got married, we went on like a 4-month road trip out west in the US. And I committed to myself, I'd only work while we were driving. Well, he drove and I was using the hotspot.
Hopefully you weren't driving.
I wasn't driving. Like never, not that he didn't let me drive, but he just drove the whole time. So I was like, that's fine, I'll work. And I'd work for like, we do like 4-hour chunks most days. And I'd work for about 4 hours. Second we got somewhere, we explored and I didn't work. And I had to that date, my biggest month yet. And I was working the least amount of hours I ever worked. I was so focused because I knew I only had 4 hours, got to get the really important things done, eat that frog, you know, and then I got to really experience, and that made my work so much more special and so much more creative. And it just, ever since then, I always go back to those 4 months, because it really, really like opened up a light bulb for me. I was like, whoa, that just happened. That's pretty cool. So
one of my first mentors, I studied a lot of like peak performance, and there's a few things that I'd love to add to this is like a lot of us are productive, but we waste so much fucking time. So one of my first mentors, I think it was about 8 years ago, made me do an hour journal. Every hour I had to set an alarm, and what was my task? Did I do it? How effective was I? Blah, 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 blah. So I did it for about a week, and I noticed within every hour how unproductive I was and how much time I was wasting and how ill-focused I was.
wow.
And it was an amazing thing to actually to do that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is when it like, because a lot of the time, if you actually can focus on that, you know, you can achieve 10 times more as well. But the other thing is as well, like human performance, when you actually look at it, we're not endurance athletes, like cognitively focus, attention, decisions. We've only got so much bandwidth per day we can take. If you actually look at peak performance, or the science behind it, 50 minutes to 10 minutes. So 50 minutes intense, 10-minute break, 50 to 10. And they say you'll achieve so much more if you just time it, give yourself the deadline. I'm going to do this by this one thing, this 50-minute slot. That's it. Go.
Yeah. 100%.
Break.
Yeah.
Then go again. Next thing.
I remember hearing that with, I forgot what book it was. It was Brendan Burchard, though. He wrote.
He was the guy behind. Yeah, he's the guy behind the study.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So they did the study. They did the biggest independent study of peak performance.
Cool.
I think.
Yeah. High Performance Habits. I think that was the book I read. Something like that. Yeah, that makes sense. And I remember reading that. And usually, even if I have a day of calls, I always try to put like 15 minutes in between, just to like get up, go for a quick walk, stretch, and just recharged after, instead of like, all right, we're going to sit here for 4 hours straight and just go. And it's uninspired work. It's forced. It doesn't feel good. It's not fun. So it's really hard to implement for people who have that mindset, but I promise, like, try to be open to this. This has been studied, like you said. Yeah,
it's science.
There's science to back it. It's a thing. It's a real thing. Yeah. This has been awesome. I feel like we could go forever with this. I definitely want to have you back, because there's so many different facets of what you talked about, and maybe like in a couple months we'll see what's going on with the world.
Yeah, whenever. I've got all the time in the world. So
yeah, but this has been so insightful, and so many really good quotes. We're going to quote a lot from this episode. I love it. But I think give till it hurts. I really love that one. But anything you just want to leave with the audience before we find out where they can go stalk you and all of that. Any like during this time that you'd like to leave us with?
I've got a couple of things. Number one, lean in. Right now is the period you need to lean in. Your people need you. They need the beacon and they need the hero. So be their hero. And then point number two, I'd say whatever the thing is you're not doing is the thing you need to do the most. So every night, make a should have list. What should have I done today? And make that your to-do list. A lot of people's fears are on their should have. I should have made that call. Should have had this conversation. Should have hit this advert going. And it's usually those things are the things that will take people to the next level on the should have list. It needs to become your to-do list.
I love that. And should have, like, for you specifically, not because someone else told you should do this, you should do that, because you know deep down.
Specifically for you.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's awesome. Sweet. That's amazing.
I should have told that client I don't want to work with them.
There you go.
Why know that?
Yeah, I love it. And where can everyone find you? Where can they go connect with you?
All over. Just Google Simon Hall. It'll come up. Instagram, Simon Hall BC. Remember the BC.
Yes.
Pretty that much everywhere. Obviously, we've got the podcast. We're pretty much everywhere. We're on the majority of channels.
Awesome. So we will link all those goodies below. Thank you so much, Simon. I know it's late there. So I so appreciate it. We finally got this to work.
Hey, anytime. But who for you, I'd love to know for you, like, who is the awkward entrepreneur? Like, if there was a person who you know, you could say that is the awkward entrepreneur, who would it be?
Oh gosh, I mean myself, but that's a great question. No one's asked me that before. I have to think about it.
Who is the awkward entrepreneur?
I gotta think about that one. I'm not sure. When I created the brand and the idea, it was more because I don't know if you know this story, but like when I started in fitness coaching. At the time, it was a lot of like fitness professionals were doing, especially women, were doing certain poses on Instagram. It's when like it was just so big, and it's called the booty pose. I'm sure you've seen it. It's all over. And I couldn't do it. And it was like a running joke with my friends. I couldn't twist my body into these posts. And I like I kept trying to copy other fitness professionals online. I thought, well, they're successful. I have to do it like they're doing it. And I literally couldn't. And one day I filmed myself because I was like, I'll just take a screenshot and maybe I'll catch the pose. And the video was so ridiculous. And it was so comical, me trying to do it. And I was like, you know what? Instead of trying to screenshot, I'm going to post this video of how ridiculous this is. And then I just switched to start making fun of it instead of trying to do it. And I was like, this is really awkward. This is what I look like trying to do this. And this is not me. It's not authentic. It feels really weird. So I'm going to just start making fun of it in a loving way, of course. And that's when it started, and kind of how there's so many awkward things that we do that are behind the scenes that we don't share. So I just said, I'm going to share all the weird stuff with you guys and be honest and real about it. And then it transferred into my business coaching business, and it took off. People just loved it. They loved the realness. They started to admit and share their stories with me. They're like, this is what I did that's really weird, and it became a connection piece, really.
I just get so many flashbacks. When I heard the name, I was like, holy shit, like the amount of awkward things I've done. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, wow.
It's so like, one of the questions I had I should bring this back, but in my free community was like, when people would enter, I'm like, what is a really awkward moment that you have had in business that you want to share? Like, it's safe space here, drop it below, and there's been some funny ones. Like,
what's yours? I've got a brilliant one.
There's that one's a huge one right there. It's just like, posting that was very scary. Also, just like back in my network marketing days when I did it the wrong way, and I sent a cold message to many men saying, hey girl, all the time. They're like, okay, I'm a guy. And you know what? Some of them signed up, which was kind of funny. I was like, wow, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person, I guess. But that was one of them. It's happened many times. So what was one of yours?
Oh, mine's brilliant. So the best one I can remember this, I was so young. Like, I've never really put this onto a platform. I'm not going to name the company, but it's a very world-renowned company. So I got flown to this speaking gig in a private jet. I was 21, came and picked me up, chauffeur, XYZ. And I had to deliver a speech. So I got headhunted. I had to deliver my first ever speaking gig speech. In front of this big global business about confidence, like how to get confidence personally. Okay. So basically I rocked up there and realized they'd given me the wrong thing of what I needed to do. So I'd created this speech. I put my heart into doing it, and I built the wrong speech. So effectively, know your audience, the first rule in something. I was only 21. I didn't know my audience. So I built the wrong bloody speech, and I found out the night before, like, I was like, oh my God, I need to go and fix this. So I ran upstairs to do it. And then what happened in the day, I got there, and the actual gig on confidence, I wasn't confident in it, and it collapsed. And I'm not just talking about your little audience. I'm talking about people in government. Like,
oh, wow.
And it was just a shambles. Like, my first ever big major speaking gig, very high ticket, like the works just blew up in my face. And it was the most awkward moment of my life. I don't think I've ever gotten so red in my life.
Oh, but no.
The best thing is with that, I think this is what's made me such a powerful speaker, because like, I will never make any of those mistakes. I think it's such an incredible story, and it's just nothing will ever be as bad as that.
Yeah, exactly. And you learn from it. You didn't let it stop you. You're like, well, can't be as bad as that. We only can go up from here,
You know where it gets even more awkward?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just,
like, it gets more awkward.
Oh, wait, your story gets more awkward.
It gets more awkward because the private jet that I got flown over, I had to fly back with a lot of the people. So there's about 10, 15 people who were at that gig on the jet. And like,
oh no.
And they all kept walking past, like, giving me this dodgy look, like poor lad. Look,
gosh,
it was just torture.
It also shows you though, like, you can kind of bomb an opportunity like that, and look, you came back from it. It did not crush your career or your life, So, and I think it's such a great reminder. Yeah.
Own it. Like, honestly, if I was to lie, like, the best thing is with that, I just think, speak about it, own it, and do you know what I mean? Like that's the thing. 100%. Just never lies. Like, look, this happened.
I think like that's also a huge theme with like the Pretty Awkward Entrepreneur is like you just gotta laugh at the shit that goes wrong, because so much is gonna go quote unquote wrong or not as planned, and you gotta laugh at it. Like just kind of what you said with these events being shut down. You're like, all right, we just gotta laugh at this, or you can stress about
Exactly.
it. You pick your poison. I think laughing at it is much more fun, and you have more fun in business too when you can laugh at the mistakes and be like, well, I sent the email to the wrong person. Oops. I could either be really upset about it or be like, that's hysterical. Like, why did I do that? You know?
Lean
Yeah.
into it. Always lean in.
Lean in. I love it.
Lean
In, exposure, authenticity, so many great themes. Thank you so much, Simon. This was so great. Really, really excited just to keep chatting with you. And I'm excited for everyone to go stalk Simon. He's got really great stuff. Yeah, I'll see you on the next one.
Peace.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.